Good morning and welcome to the weekly roundup today on the 19th of March. I'm going to focus today on grants that are available for businesses to help them recover from the last year. So I don't think it's going to be a particularly long presentation today, but hopefully quite focused and get some information out that might be of value to you. Before we do that though, let's start with a positive and the expectation that the economy will recover. So I was reading this week that the Office for National Statistics shows that the UK's GDP in February this year was 9% down on February last year, which isn't unexpected. Obviously, we've been in lockdown for practically a year now, I think. But the Bank of England are positive. They've commented this week that the UK economy is like a coiled spring and that consumer confidence will surge back thanks to the vaccination programme. So obviously we do hope so, and time will tell over the next few months. But the Bank of England are predicting that the economy will recover to its pre-COVID level by the end of this year. So bit of light at the end of the tunnel there. Time will tell. So are you prepared? Is your business ready for this new normal, whatever that looks like and whenever that will be? I think from our perspective, we're hoping that we'll have our offices back open and running to some sort of business as usual by the end of June. But I do expect long-term working from home as a part of this new normal, that we work some of the time in the office and some of the time at home. But there are some things that not just us as a business, but all businesses need to think about over the coming months. So vaccinated employees, regular workplace testing, and continued social distancing, at least for some time yet. So we've got some guidance that we've put together, got a vaccination policy for the business, got a covering letter to employees about vaccinations and testing policy, COVID-19 workplace risk checklist, and a vaccine register for all your staff should you need it. So if you would like copies of those, then obviously let us know, we can send them across to you. We haven't rolled those out in our business just yet. It's something that we'll be consulting with our employees on over the next few weeks. Which we would encourage you to do, and also take obviously legal advice from an employment lawyer if you're going to be changing any policies that you've currently got. But I think my key message there is that, I think the expectation is that this year will bring changes. Don't think we'll ever go back to what we did before, but certainly this new normal, which means that the economy can get back on its feet, businesses can be moving forward. And on that subject as well, over 50,000 English businesses have now registered their interest for the free rapid tests for regular workplace testing. So you need to register for your interest on that. And again, as always, there'll be an email follow-up to this webinar, and within there you'll find the link to click on to register your interest for workplace testing. You must register on or before the 31st of March. So just a note on that. And I think if you have got employees and you want them to be in the office, then it would be sensible to have a policy about workplace testing. In the meantime, stay safe. And if you need anything, would like to discuss anything in that regard with us, then obviously do get in touch. Okay, government support news then. Like I say, I'm going to mainly talk about grants. Very quickly, wanted to just remind everybody about VAT that's been deferred due to the coronavirus. So businesses can now, should now be paying that VAT that was deferred between the 20th of March and the 30th of June last year. If you can't pay it all at once, you must join the VAT deferral payment scheme. It's an online service that's now open, but it's only open till the 21st of June. So you've got 3 months to get registered on that. As I say every week on this webinar, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. Look at what your VAT liability is, look at what your cash flow is likely to be over the next 12 months, and then get in touch with HMRC via their online service to defer that payment over the next 12 months if you need to. Just as an aside, doesn't affect many clients, but HMRC have also updated their guidance for VAT annual accounting scheme or the VAT payment on account schemes. So there was some new guidance issued to those people who operate their VAT under those schemes. That guidance was updated on the 4th of March. And if you are on the VAT annual accounting scheme or the VAT payment on account scheme, you can join the VAT deferment scheme from the 10th of March. So yeah, some guidance to follow in the email after this webinar. Okay, on to the grants then. So I've got 5 to talk about, I think it was 5. And I find the wording quite ambiguous. They're using interchangeable terms. So I think my key message on this is look at the email that we send after this and look at your eligibility for all of the grants to make sure that you're very aware of what's available and you make the appropriate claim. Okay, so the first one, the closed businesses lockdown payment for England. So this supports businesses that have been required to close due to the national lockdown that began on the 5th of January. So eligible businesses may be entitled to a one-off cash grant of up to £9,000 from their local council. Local councils will pay the same businesses that are eligible to receive the local restriction support grant closed addendum for the national lockdown period that began on the 5th of January. So again, wording quite lengthy, not very intuitive in terms of whether or not it applies to you. So on the eligibility, you must be based in England, you must occupy a property on which you pay business rates and you are the rates payer, and you've been required to close business because of the national lockdown from the 5th of January onwards, and you've been able to provide your usual in-person customer service from your premises. So that's going to include non-essential retail, leisure, personal care, sports facilities, tourism, hospitality. So there's been lots of talk about the grants that are available for the hospitality sector. This one is slightly wider, includes hospitality, but it's also, if you've got a high street presence, no matter what it is that you're doing, if you've had to close your doors, then I think you probably need to look at this to see whether you're eligible for this £9,000 payment. The deadline, so this is why I'm talking about it today, because the deadline to apply for this grant is the 31st of March. So just over a week to get your application in. So that's why I'm focusing today on these grants, because the majority have a deadline of the 31st of March. So the next one is the local restrictions support grant for closed businesses. So that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? You can apply for this grant if your business is either in a local tier 2 or tier 3 restrictions and has been required to close because of local restrictions that resulted in the first full day of closure on or after the 9th of September. So we're going back in time. The first grant was the current lockdown we're in. This other grant, local restriction support grant for closed businesses, is relevant if you're tier 2 or tier 3. And also in an area of local tier 4 restrictions and have been required to close because of local restrictions that resulted in the first full day of closure on or after the 19th of December. Okay, so 3 different tiers, 2 different dates. So work out when you closed, work out what tier you were in, and then go and look at these websites to see if you can apply for any of these grants. Again, you will need to show that your business is based in England, occupies property on which it pays business rates and is the rates payer, and has been required to close for at least 14 days because of the restrictions, and has been unable to provide its usual in-person customer service from its premises. So as I've said, pubs, restaurants that operate primarily in an in-person venue, but would have been forced to close and then have gone on to do takeaway only, perhaps. Those are the sorts of businesses that this is focused on. So eligible businesses can get 1 grant for each non-domestic property within the restricted area. So application deadlines. So the national lockdown that started on the 5th of November If you're applying for a grant that covers that period, the deadline is the 31st of March. National lockdown, 5th of January, first payment cycle, 5th of January to the 15th of February. The deadline for that grant is the 31st of March. And then national lockdown, 5th of January, second payment cycle, 16th of February to the 31st of March. The deadline for that one is the 31st of May. So the first two have got quite a quick deadline. If you apply for that first payment for the national lockdown, that covers to the 15th of February, that closes 31st of March. There's a second cycle that will open on that covers the period from the 16th of February to the 31st of March. That's open to the 31st of May. What I don't know is if you apply for the first one, whether or not you automatically get the second. That would be something that you need to check the details on. Okay, following me so far? Okay. Right, the third one, local restrictions support grant for open businesses in England. So this grant supports businesses that have been severely impacted due to temporary local restrictions. So businesses that have not had to close, but have been severely impacted due to the local tier 2 or tier 3 restrictions may be eligible for this grant. So you'll receive a cash grant from your local council for each 14-day period that you are under local restrictions. Local councils have the discretion to provide grant funding for businesses under this scheme. So they will identify the right businesses. So this one, I think, it isn't you've had to close, so you're not a non-essential retail or anything like that. You've still operated, but you've had restrictions. Then this is probably the grant to take a look at. So based in England, tier 2, tier 3, local restrictions since the 1st of August, and has been severely impacted because of the local restrictions. I guess when you apply for the grant, you'll have to demonstrate that you have been severely impacted. So the local councils will have the freedom to determine the precise eligibility criteria and for these grants. So we expect them to be targeting hospitality, hotels, bed and breakfast, leisure businesses in particular, but there might well be others. So again, I think if you can demonstrate you've been impacted, then it's worth applying. Again, deadline 31st of March. So if you haven't looked at this already, you must do so. Okay, there are some specific sector grants. So nightclubs, dance halls, adult entertainment businesses are eligible for a coronavirus grant due to national lockdown restrictions. So again, been required to close and can get a cash grant from local authorities for each 14-day period they were closed. The funding is available from the 1st of November and is not retrospective. So again, need to get on and apply for that grant, because you might have lost the eligibility if you leave it too late. And again, the deadline for that, 31st of March. Some of these deadlines might get extended, but at the moment, 31st of March. So I'm quite anxious that everybody that can apply for those. The final one, the final one is the additional restrictions grant in England. So this grant supports businesses that are not covered by any other grant scheme or where additional funding is needed. So this will provide local councils with grant funding to support closed businesses that do not directly pay business rates. And I think this is really important. We've got lots and lots of clients, small businesses, they've had to, maybe they haven't closed, but they've severely been impacted, but they don't occupy premises, so they don't pay rates. So they haven't had any of the big grants last year, the 10,000 and 25,000, because they don't pay rates. So this is the one that they need to be looking at. So as I say, this will provide local councils with grant funding to support closed businesses that do not directly pay business rates, as well as businesses that do not have to close, but which are impacted. In addition, larger grants can be given to those made through the LRSG closed grants, which are the ones we've just mentioned before. So local councils can determine which businesses to target and determine the amount of funding for the additional restrictions grant. Local councils have the freedom to determine the eligibility for these grants. So you need to go and look at your local council website. I guess most people watching this are based in Chichester, so we'll send the link on the email to there. You won't be able to get any funding if your business is in administration, insolvent, or has been struck off, or you've exceeded the permitted subsidy limit. But I think for our clients, this is the one that they haven't been able to access any other grants before, so this is there for them. So I don't think that limit is going to be an issue to them. Again, watch out for the the email that will be sent after this for the link. We'll put all the links in our website as well. And I've posted all of the links on my own LinkedIn profile this morning to just raise a bit more awareness, a bit more awareness of those. So yeah, so quite a lot of grants available. Eligibility is very defined. So just to wrap this up, I think some notes, just comments to make on the grants. Check the criteria. It might be crystal clear that you do qualify. It might be crystal clear that you don't qualify, but I suspect there might be some ambiguity. So it's worth finding out more. If you genuinely feel that you're eligible, then obviously apply. If you get rejected, but if your grant is refused, then appeal. I've mentioned this before. Last year there was a client that I work with quite closely who has a retail premises, but not hospitality, so not got as much support as perhaps they'd hoped. They applied for a grant to Chichester, was rejected. They appealed and appealed successfully and was awarded a grant of £7,500. So a really good outcome for them. Remember that these grants are taxable receipts, so it is income to you, so it will form part of your accounts, which if you make a profit, you'll pay tax on. But obviously, depending on what you spend that money on, then there will be potentially tax relief available on any of the costs that you use to cover with that grant. And if you invest in equipment, if you use the grant to invest so that when you are able to trade in this year, all being well, you're in a strong position and you've spent that on equipment, then you might be eligible to claim the 130% super deduction against your profit to reduce your tax liability. So those were my only topics of conversation for today. Like I say, it's all about grants. There are 5 there that I've gone through. We'll make sure that we circulate all the various links that you need to be able to assess whether you're eligible, and do apply. Keep an eye on that deadline. Most of them are 31st of March, so act quickly. And if you're not successful, then it's probably worth the time and effort to appeal if you feel that you meet all the criteria. So that's it from me today. Thank you very much for your time. As I've said every time, please do get in touch if you need more information, or if you've got any questions. Otherwise, I will sign off now and hope to see you all next week. Okay, thank you. Bye.